All right, ladies and gentlemen, today's video, we're going to be talking about Capcom and how apparently the company is unfortunately not doing too well, right? Capcom, I have my issues with Capcom. I do love Capcom as a company and their brands, but unfortunately, when they mess up, they mess up. And that's exactly what's going on here. A lot of people have issues with Monster Hunter Wilds, right? A lot of people have issues for a multitude of reasons. At the beginning, it was performance issues. Then afterwards, it was a lack of content. Regardless of what it may be, Monster Hunter Wilds unfortunately didn't sell long term like they were hoping. Monster Hunter Wilds came out swinging out of the gate, sold millions of copies at launch, over 10 million copies at launch. Absolutely insane amounts of sales. But unfortunately, it just kind of died off. And in the recent last quarter, which by the way is 3 months, Wilds has sold only 477,000 copies in the last quarter. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, that's still a great sale. Of course it is, right? Of course, these are still good numbers. This is a lot of money. But the truth is, Monster Hunter is known for doing millions of sales continuously throughout its first year. That is how these other games have reached tens of millions of copies sold after just a little bit of time, right? Monster Hunter Wilds right now, over on Steam DB, if you look at the numbers, look at Monster Hunter Wilds, you're going to see that there is only 14,209 people playing the game right now with a 24-hour peak of 30,622. Very little resurgence throughout the time that the game has been live, but the all-time peak for this game was 1,384,608 players just on Steam alone. So obviously there's been a massive drop off. The number is insane. Now, if you go back to this article here, let's talk about what's happening with Capcom and their stock and how it's unfortunately due to what's been going on with the lack of, sales in Monster Hunter Wilds. On Monday, Capcom published its first quarterly report for the year of 2025 financial year. While the company showed growing revenues and profits, the report painted a dire picture on the state of Monster Hunter Wilds. During the quarter that ended June 30th, Wild sales had fallen by more than 95% from its launch quarter, leaving the landmark release Capcom's ninth best-selling title for the quarter behind older games like Devil May Cry 5, Resident Evil Village, and Resident Evil 4 Remake. Now, here's the thing. I think that's insane, okay? I think it's insane that Monster Hunter Wilds is selling less than games like Devil May Cry 5, Resident Evil Village, and Resident Evil 4 Remake. I think that is crazy. There is no reason why this should be happening. And the only reason why it's happening is, well, quite frankly, they just don't have enough content. And also a lot of the diehard Monster Hunter fans have issues with the way that the game is. They think it's easier. They think it's not as challenging as the previous games. There's a lot of problems that people have with Monster Hunter Wilds on top of performance issues, on top of a multitude of issues. But the fact that they're losing to older games like that, I think that's pretty crazy. But Wilds is, to put it lightly, in a rough state. Since launch, player sentiment has soured to the point of widespread rancidity, leaving the game's recent Steam review rating at a persistent, overwhelmingly negative. Now, if you look at the Steam DB reviews, you can clearly see that PC Gamer is not lying. You can verify that the reviews right now are 54% positive, over 268,000 reviews, and people are not happy. People are obviously very upset at this video game for a multitude of reasons. And I think the fact of this review score being what it is, I think that is shying away a lot of people from buying the game when they otherwise would have bought the game. So it's obviously not looking very good, right? To have a review rating like that on a game like Monster Hunter, that's a pretty bad problem to have. But in any case, if you look at the actual unit sales ranking for this particular quarter, you're going to notice that right now, Devil May Cry 5, 1,782, right? So this is, I believe, 1.7 million or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Resident Evil Village is at 923,000, right? Resident Evil 4 is at 706,000. By the way, these numbers are absolutely insane. These are disgusting numbers, man. Capcom is selling some crazy amount of units. It actually blows my mind. But Devil May Cry 5 selling this many units is insane to me. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard at 635,000. Devil May Cry HD Collection at 594,000. Street Fighter 6 at 538,000, Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition at 495,000, Resident Evil 2 at 482,000, and finally, you get to Monster Hunter Wilds at 477,000 and Monster Hunter Rise at 389,000. Monster Hunter Rise sold almost as much as Monster Hunter Wilds. That is crazy to me. Now, keep in mind a couple of things for full transparency and context. These video games that were mentioned recently, this is only in units sold, which I'm not trying to undersell it. This is big numbers, okay? For these games, these are huge numbers. But the truth of the matter is, there was recently a very big proponent that pushed a lot of these units sold. What was that proponent? Well, that was the Steam sale, right? The Steam summer sale happened recently, and a lot of these games were on mega sale, right? So these games were super cheap. They were being pushed out there. So I'm not surprised to see, 1.7 million units sold for Devil May Cry 5, right? I'm not surprised to see Resident Evil Village at almost 1 million units sold. Same thing with Resident Evil 4. I'm not surprised to see that. Whereas Monster Hunter Wilds is a little bit more expensive, or I should say a lot more expensive compared to some of these games. If you look at here, figures in the above list reflect totals that include ports to additional platforms following the initial release, right? And it includes include Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition. Players have also criticized its thin end game experience, which is what a lot of people are complaining about. On top of the performance issues, people are complaining about the end game experience being extremely lackluster, lagging weapon balance as well. While returning monsters and continuing title updates have been met with some enthusiasm, even Monster Hunter diehards have been left with a distinct suspicion that Wilds was pushed out a little bit too soon to secure end of financial year sales for Capcom's pursuit of consecutive record profits. And this I could agree with personally. Okay, I could agree with this. It was pretty obvious that the game seemed like it was rushed out of there a little bit. And the reason why is obviously they wanted to constantly showcase that progression in terms of profits year over year. And they thought, and not that they thought, they knew that Monster Hunter Wilds was going to be the way to do it. They knew that they were going to be able to go like crazy in terms of sales for that game at full price. But while Wilds broke Capcom's launch records, its ailing reputation and clearly had an impact on it, continuing its sales after the fact. After making more than 10 million sales in the first 3 months, Wilds then only sold 477,000 copies between the next 3 months, which is, again, insane to me, right? Think about that. A game that sold 10 million in 3 months is only able to sell 477,000 3 months after that. It's fucking nuts. Capcom spent the last week breaking escalating levels of emergency glass to win back player approval with bikini-clad blacksmiths and accelerated update schedules, but those efforts didn't prevent immediate fallout in the wake of the company's quarterly report. Spotted by Eurogamer, Capcom's stock price began an immediate plunge of almost 10% once the Japanese markets opened today. Oh my God, dude. A 10% stock drop just from this news alone is crazy to me. It's because they know that chances are after the numbers start to settle and the Monster Hunter Wilds initial numbers start to settle, what's going to happen is Capcom is going to have a lot lower expectations than what they might have had after that initial 10 million sales in the first 3 months. It's pretty bad. But ultimately, at the end of the day, all of this, people are going to say Capcom still made a ton of money, and they did. There's no denying it. I would never deny that. Capcom made so much money, it's disgusting, right? The amount of sales that they had, especially on PC, right? An estimated between 5 to 8 million sales by Capcom on Monster Hunter Wilds is crazy. There's no denying that. But there's also no denying that something is affecting this game in an extreme negative way, regardless of what PC Gamer says. I'm listening more to the gamers themselves. The gamers themselves are saying that they are heavily unhappy with this game right now. To see this game go from 1.4 million to 14,000 in just the span of a few months is pretty insane for a game like this. And at the end of the day, man, I think that there needs to be some sort of massive intervention. I'm sure they're doing updates. I've seen them do title updates. I've seen what they're trying to do, but something bigger needs to happen. Something bigger needs to happen and quickly in order to save this game, because I would almost bet that the other Monster Hunter games have a similar player base, right? If we were to look at, let's say, Monster Hunter, let's go Monster Hunter, I don't know. I guess let's look at World. I don't know, just out of curiosity. Monster Hunter World, has a 24-hour peak of 17,273, right? If you look at Monster Hunter Rise, out of curiosity, that one's not as big, 6,500. Monster Hunter World has such a huge player base in comparison to Monster Hunter Wilds being a little over double that, and that's the new game. So again, it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy comparison. So you guys let me know in the comments down below, what do you think is affecting Monster Hunter Wilds? If you play this game and you are disappointed, let me know why, because I really want to hear from people that are hardcore fans of Monster Hunter overall. What is missing in this game? What is causing this to make so many people upset? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you enjoyed it, consider hitting that like and subscribe as we're on our way to 100K. And I will see you guys on the next one.